lot of these are in the dashboard. Orders, we have a scheduling sheet, an equipment sheet, right? So if we want to get to those sheets, we can use these quick locks, right? So all I need to do is just click here or here or here. And so these individual shapes are based on the individual sheet. We then have a few database sheets. That's just for the data. So I've got an orders database. This is going to track all of our orders, right? Our orders is going to store all that information. I've got our order equipment database. These are the equipment that are stored on those specific orders. So if we were to take a look in order number 1, we could see that as well. So back into the orders, right? If we want to look in a specific order, we can do that as well. So there's a lot we can do. So we want to know what equipment, like these two equipment were on this order number 6, right? So we want to make sure that we store that. Notice order number 6 has 2 different equipments. So we want to store that in the database as well. That's for every specific order number. And I've also got some pivot tables that we're going to be going over. All right, so let's get into the menu and see exactly how we created this really cool menu. Well, basically what these are, it's just a few lines of code. In fact, it's just one line of code along with 2 supporting lines of code on this. So the most important thing is to create these shapes. So that's what I've done here. I've created these shapes, and also what I've done is I've created 2 different icons for each one. So each shape, each screen has both a white and a blue icon. Notice that when it is off color, that dashboard has that white icon, whereas it has the dark blue. And keep in mind that when it is off, right, those off colors are going to be in white. So all I did was pretty much create some shapes here. And it's very, very easy because I created this shape, and then I placed this icon right on top of it. Now the key, the important thing is when you're developing a menu like this, and you don't want to use a lot of code to do it, is critical with the naming of the shapes, right? So let's take a look at some of the naming that we have. And we see inside the shapes here, we see that we have this called, let's take a look at this one on here. This particular shape here, we see the selected shape is called dashboard, right? That is the shape name. And then when I select a single shape, we can see that name up here, dashboard. So we have to make sure that the name of the shape is exactly the same as the name of the sheet. Very, very important. Name of the sheet, and that's also the name, of course, of our code name sheet. So we want to make sure that we're consistent. And that means, and that includes both for the icon and the shape itself have to have the same name. Okay? Make sure you can use this, right? You can edit those names directly in here inside the selection panel, and that's an easier way to do that. But keep in mind that each shape, right, is exactly the same name as the sheet shape. When we have that kind of consistency, it makes it very easy inside the code to then switch on that. Now, of course, you can use hyperlinks as well to switch sheets, but also I prefer VBA too. I like VBA, but hyperlinks would work just as well. We can hyperlink these as well. So to do that, of course, you can just add that hyperlink. All right, but the best way to do it in VBA, we're going to assign a macro to that. And these shapes, we're going to assign a macro. So we're going to call this menu select. And the good thing about that is, regardless of the icon, regardless of the button, all of them are tied to a single macro. So when we edit that macro, we're going to go into the VBA editor. When we take a look at this, that VBA editor, we can also use Alt F11 to reach there. Alt F11. You can also get there through the Developers tab. And the Developers tab is right here, and using the Visual Basic. You can also get to that Developers tab inside the options, right? And then also you have the Customize the ribbon, and you want to make sure that that Developer tab is selected. So we're going to go inside the Developers tab. We can close this for now. Inside that, in the Visual Basic, what we have is I've got a few applications and a few different modules, right? I've got 4 different modules. Each module has a set number of macros. So we're going to focus on the application macros. And the macro that we were just talking about is called menu select. And actually all the work is done by a single line of code. And I've wrapped that around application screen as being false, and then we're going to turn it on to true, and that makes it a lot less flashy. So remember, the names are critical, right? The names are critical. So the name of the shape that called it is called application caller. That's the name of the shape. So if I take that name of the shape and I have used the same name, the sheet name, notice that these sheet names are dashboard, equipment, right, customers, right? So all of them have the same sheet name. So if I do that, this is going to add to the list. And I simply wrap that around screen updating false and screen updating true. That makes it flashing a lot less. And that's all we have to do. So one single macro to control all those menus. Consistency, the only important thing that you need to remember is when you focus on is those names. As long as the name of the shape is the same as the name of the sheet, then you're good to go. That single line of code will help you. Also keep in mind that if you do try to run this particular macro from here, you're going to get a bug. And that's simply because there's no shape that called it, right? It's looking for a shape. You didn't call it from a shape because we called it from this little run, continue, or F5, right? And that's why. So you'll need to run this particular macro, or anything with application caller in it must be run directly from a shape on the screen. Okay, that is it. All right, we've got a few different macros on the admin screen while we're going over just a few, and that's have to do with browsing with folders. So if we scroll down here to the admin screen here, we've got different, right? I want to be able to browse for a particular folder. If I click here, I want to browse for the specific folder that we have, right? So how are we going to do that? That's going to put that file path, that folder, directly in this cell for technicians in E5, E6, or E7. So that's relatively simple. So we're just going to browse for that. And that's we have basically three different browsers: technician, equipment, and attachment folder, right? And also equipment pictures, so that's a little bit different. But this particular one, right, all we need to do is we're going to focus on the job folder and the file dialog. What we're going to do is we're going to set that file dialog, right? And mention that job folder is a folder picker, right? We're looking for a folder picker under the application file dialog. Then we're going to focus on that with the job folder. We're going to set a title and browse for the technician folder. We're going to allow multi-select, and that's false, right? We only want them to select one single folder. Therefore, the allow multi-select must be false. If .show doesn't equal -1, then go to no selection. And that means when they do not make any kind of selection, right, we want them to skip this step, right? So that step is basically going to take that entire folder path and place that directly in E5 on our admin screen. That's it. The others are exactly the same, except we're placing it in E6 and E7. That is it, okay? We also have a refresh with equipment pictures, right? This is a simple macro that what I want to do is I want to be able to take the equipment pictures, and here's our equipment, and I want to refresh them. I want to list all those equipment pictures. Now remember, we need a few things to get those equipment pictures. I want those stored in specific folders, and I've got them right here inside a folder called equipment pictures. This is the folder that I have. This is that folder that we browse for. So here's all of our equipment pictures. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that the names of those pictures are exactly the same as the names in our picture file. So when we combine this picture file name along with this particular folder here, this folder, along with a backslash, one additional backslash, then we are going to get the full file path of that picture. So what I want to do is I want to be able to create a link. And that link, I want to be able to refresh those pictures, run this macro, have all those pictures refreshed. We also want to give those pictures a specific name. This is called equipment 4, basically on row 4, equipment 5, equipment 6, and so on and so forth. So when I refresh those pictures, the first thing that I want to do is I want to delete every single picture in here. I want to make sure that they're deleted using the macro. The refresh picture will then clear that out and then add the new ones. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can do that through this little macro right here. The first thing what we want to do is we want to dimension the last row. I need to know the last row of the picture, right? We're going to loop through all the rows. Our last row is row 44. So we're going to loop from 4 through 44. We're going to look for this. If this, we're going to combine that with the folder. If we do find a correct file path, we're going to place that picture. So we're going to focus also on the equipment folder as a string and the full file path, meaning the folder along with the name of the picture is going to create our equipment path. And we also want to remove all the existing shapes, so we're going to dimension the equipment shape as a shape. So the first thing we want to do, as mentioned, is remove all the existing shapes. But I don't want to remove all the shapes on the sheet, right? Because I've got other shapes, a lot of other shapes. I only want to remove the shapes that are right here in this list and call it shape. So how do we do that? Well, if you see, each one of those pictures contains the word equipment item, and then there's a number. So if they each start with equipment item or equip item, then what I need to do is check to see if the shape name contains equip item. If it does, then delete it. And that's just what we've done here using the in-string command. If it doesn't, it could result in error. Therefore, we've wrapped that around on error, resume next, and on error, go to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to check for each shape on the sheet. We're going to loop through every single shape in the entire sheet. The equipment dot shapes we're going to loop, and what we're going to do is we're going to check for the name. If the equipment shape name contains equipment item, and that's greater than 0, meaning it is found, at least one instance of that has been found in the shape, then we are going to delete that shape. And that's all we have to do. We just loop through that, and that's going to loop through every shape on the sheet, and it is going to allow them to delete it. So once we've deleted it, we then want to add the new one. So the first thing we need to do is determine the last row based on column C. Our equipment ID is now in column C. We've left 2 columns for our menu. So inside column C, we're going to get the last row. If the last row is less than 4, that means there are no items, and we can exit out of the sub. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is I want to take that path, that equipment path located in the admin screen E6, and I want to put that in a variable called the equipment folder. And then what I want to do is I want to loop through all the items in that list, starting in row 4. To do that, we just want to I also want to make sure that our equipment path contains the correct value. So what we're going to do is we're going to build that equipment path. It's going to be that equipment folder. And then remember, we're going to put in that backslash as I remember. Then what we're going to want to do is we want to take what is the contents of I, column I, and the equipment row. Now, column I, of course, contains our picture file name. So the combination of that file name plus the file folder is going to be our full file path. However, we don't know if it is a correct path yet, so we do need to check for that. We can use the directory command to do just that. If the directory, equipment path, VB directory equals empty, that means it is an incorrect path. What we want to do is we want to skip it because something's wrong. So we're going to go to the next item. And what that's going to do is going to skip all this and go right here to the next item in the loop. However, if it is correct, we want to insert that. We're going to use the pictures command, pictures dot
Genki stay in a couple of weeks. Gonna be a lot of late nights working on spider gear.
What was that? All good. Little spill. Get it cleaned up real quick. All good.
It's alright, man.
Ay, bendito. Mi hijo. Qué guapo.
Gracias, mami.
I invited a guest tonight. Can you get the apartment ready? Maybe put on some music to set the mood? Ah, Nasha.
Really? The campaign manager on Christmas Eve?
Well, tomorrow's rally isn't going to plan itself. Thanks for getting the apartment ready, mijo. Hello?
Mixed up in the movie. One of Dad's old case files. Who's the prowler? Wonder if Dad ever caught the guy. City Hall. This was Uncle Aaron's. Dad never played it, but he also never got rid of it. Oh, salsa from abuela. Mom and Dad would move when this came on. The greatest record ever. Mom said council on Gainesville are friends. People in Harlem, they love it. Glad Dad survived the war. Missed you. Love that much better. No Christmas like a birthday. Miss heard him say that. Finn?
Hey, fixed your doorbell.
It's so good to see you. How are you? It's been like...
Months. A lot's changed.
Yeah, it really has.
Is that our guest of honor? Come on in, you two. Dinner's almost ready. Finn, I'm so glad you could make it.
Thanks for inviting me, Miss Morales.
We missed you. Well, this one especially.
Hi. Finn, this is Genki, my friend from Brooklyn Visions Academy. Genki, this is Finn, my best friend. My other best friend.
Oh yeah, you guys won the middle school science fair at County, right? You made a
Energy Jinx!
Wiring in this building is such a mess.
I'll check the circuit breaker.
so Christmas by candlelight?
I promise I didn't break it when I fixed your door.
No good. Breaker doesn't have power. Let me check if I can see anything from the fire escape. guys sit down. We got this.
Finn, tell us everything you've been up to. You still in robotics club?
I had to quit, but I've been studying biotech on my own.
Nerd.
Says the guy who has to wear an ascot to school.
Hey, only on Tuesdays.
Does your brother Rick still work for Roxxon?
I don't know how anyone could work there after seeing your last campaign ad. You went for Simon Krieger's jugular.
That reminds me. Genki, you have a certain flair for social media. Could you spread the word about tomorrow's rally?
Yeah, we'll be trending by midnight.
Sometimes it feels like Simon Krieger's my real opponent. Roxxon has so much influence here, but they don't answer to anyone except their shareholders. Harlem needs someone to fight for the community.
That's Mom's campaign speech voice, in case you couldn't tell.